Look at all these optimistic people outside Villa Park heading into the famous Holt End, including Dennis Henry and Tatiana, the Whites who flew in from Cork, Ireland to follow their beloved Aston Villa. Oh, I always get a little bit nervous when we start counting chickens before they're hatched because it was all about Aston Villa going into this game. Their record under Unai Emery, the game was at Villa Park. Leicester hadn't won in the league since last year, and if Villa had won this game, not only would they have been in the single-digit places, but because Arsenal lost at Everton, over the last 8 match weeks, Aston Villa would have amassed more points than any other Premier League side. You know what this reminds me of? My 14th birthday, when I asked specifically and repeatedly for a Subbuteo set. And on the day, there it was, sitting on the table, the exact size of box as a present. I tear it open, and inside is a hairdryer kit, complete with different attachments. Like, I'm going to give myself a pompadour at age 14. The moral of the story is, expect the unexpected with Aston Villa as we dissect Villa 2, Leicester 4. Nice to have you here. I'm in my staff training top gray. It's on clearance right now, 24 quid. The pro shirts, 60% off right now. Everything's being cleared out. They're just sending it out there. This is your last chance to load up on gear before a dodgy betting company besmirches the shirts next season. I might have to do a separate show on that because honestly, supporters are being put in a very awkward position with that potential deal. But seriously, if you want some kit, and I realize you might be like me where it's like groceries, kit, home heating fuel, kit, kids put on some sweaters and drink some water because daddy needs some kit. And when you buy the kit from the link below in the description, you are supporting this program. So fill your boots. What a scene this is as we welcome you to the Holy Trinity Show, the 3 key issues or moments that define Villa 2, Leicester City 4. I'm going to pull a cliche out from the cliche cupboard. Games are decided in the respective penalty areas, as you will see by the key stats. I took ground duels 1 as a measure today. Leicester, better in expected goals. They created 5 big chances to Villa's 1. But look at those shots and the shots on target. Look at the possession. Leicester won so many of the ground duels, which will be part of a theme that I'll discuss a little bit later on. Look at this amazing scene of climbing the steps into the famous Holt End and then being able to gaze at that glorious sight. Thank you so much again to Samir Gaby for providing this awesome video for my show. And you know what? A Villa loss takes the complete shine off my weekend. Keeping in mind, I'm up at 7 a.m. to watch these games, so that actually ruins more of my weekend than you 3 p.m. local kickoff types. But I will tell you, I will take the odd loss if we get exhilarating attacking football like was on display on Saturday. This reminded me a lot of the Liverpool game on Boxing Day. A lot of forward play, a lot of endeavor and chances, some mistakes that need to be tidied up at the back end. But I'm telling you, this is a completely different outfit, and I've fallen in love with Aston Villa again. And if you're one of the people that absolutely raged after that game at the indignity of losing to a team below us in the table, go back and watch West Ham or Southampton at home or Leeds and Forest away as a reminder. And I just feel like with every passing weekend, with every passing test, we are getting closer and closer to what we all desire. A consistent, wonderful team that's difficult to beat and one that we can be proud of. It's coming. I could feel it. Key issue, a pretty big chance for Ollie Watkins in the first half. Now, he does brilliantly well here. He's alert, he's alive, and by the way, the technique that he used to stab this ball home was quite sublime, frankly. And then, of course, he's instrumental in setting up the eventual 2-1 goal. But if his feet were set in the 26th minute, when Emi Buendia and Luca Dean had a lovely piece of interplay and this ball across is beautiful. And yes, it does take a touch of the goalkeeper's glove ever so slightly. But if Watkins' feet are set here, it's 2-1 much, much earlier. And this is around the 65th minute, a wonderful piece of technique by Phil Coutinho, who punches it through into the path of Watkins. And he should have hit it the first time. He should have tested the goalkeeper in this moment. It's so funny how he can score what was probably the most difficult of all the chances, which was the 1-0 goal that he stabs home on a rebound. But the chances that seem to be more straightforward, he struggles with. John Duran is going to push Ollie Watkins. You could tell that right away. And that's a good thing for both players. The other key moment, which ultimately dusted the game, was when Alex Moreno whiffed on the ball that was played through that led to the 4-2 goal. And you know what? Alex Moreno was quite a revelation in that second half going forward. I mean, how great was it to see a player bombing forward time and time again, making the right passes, driving the byline and hooking it back. He did it time and time again. Some of us might have been a bit surprised that he actually didn't start, but I thought Luca Dean had a pretty decent first half, especially going forward. And now you have two players in the same position that are fighting for minutes. That's the perfect scenario. But he had to make connection here. He really did. And I don't know what happened. Did he just lose his concentration? He was covering. He didn't. If it stays 3-2 there, I think we're still in with a shout. 4-2. It's over. Too big a hill to climb. And my last key issue is that I think at times today, Emi Buendia and Douglas Luiz were sublime. In fact, I think that was Little Emmy's best ever game in an Aston Villa shirt. Confident, composed, cool. You could see that on the shot that preceded the Ollie Watkins rebound 1-0 goal. When he's like that, his talent shines through. He's controlled. He's calm. But when he's like the dog that chases everything at the park, he's so easy to play against. And he gets frustrated and he gets agitated. He's easy to play around. Same thing for Douglas Luiz. At times today, so cool on the ball, so confident. Body language, incredible. And there is a case to be made, and history may show us that Douglas Luiz was the best signing of the past year. Key issue number 3. We are too cute and cuddly. This is a 30,000-foot observation that I've had for a little while, but it beautifully manifested itself on Saturday. How many times did one of our players get muscled off the ball or went down too easily looking for a foul? I mean, Victor Christensen had Leon Bailey in his back pocket the entire game. I don't remember one duel that Bailey won between them. And in fact, Christensen ran past Bailey to set up one of Leicester's goals. Leon Bailey is too cute and cuddly. But go down the list. Apart from Bailey, Buendia, Coutinho, Dean, Moreno. You could argue Douglas Luiz, although tough in some areas, not a physically imposing player. Even Jacob Ramsey, who I thought was very invisible and anonymous in that game and was rightfully dragged at halftime, he doesn't have stature in our team either. And it's not like Leicester's some big band of bullies with physical presence either. No surprise then that throughout the entire January window, we were linked with Matteo Guendouzi, who at 6'1" has that physical stature, but also has the qualities of a bastard. A player who gets stuck in, isn't afraid. He's not a shrinking violet. He plays with physicality and urgency and momentum. We were linked with Thuram of Mönchengladbach and Moussa Dembele, both of whom are sturdy customers. And then John Duran, within minutes of coming on, draws a cynical foul because of his physicality and the momentum to his stride. This guy's a unit, and I love how Unai Emery is managing our expectations, the media's expectations, even Duran himself. But I'm telling you, in that short sample size, I have this weird feeling that we're going to see Duran more than we expected, and maybe even more than he expected. He has something to offer. We've been linked with 6'5" Pau Torres, and although not what you'd consider a bastard type player, a mean physical presence. He's 6'5". Nobody wants to play against a guy like that, and he's going to win a lot of things in the air. We are getting Diego Carlos back soon-ish. That's a guy I wouldn't want to mess with if I'm a striker. And that's good because we, at too many times in this game and others, had a lot of smaller technical players on the field. And as much as I like those players, and we need those players, and those players were linking up and combining beautifully at times and making things happen, there were just too many of them all at once. And the Premier League is relentless. The Premier League is ruthless. And the Premier League is physical. And we've got to address that this summer. And I truly believe we will, just given the links that we've had over the last several weeks or so. Big issue or moment number 2, match management. This was such an odd match from a game management standpoint for both teams, quite frankly. I mean, Aston Villa get the dream start, scoring inside the first 10 minutes in front of the Holt. And again, thank you, Emi Martinez, for winning another coin toss at home. At that point, Aston Villa needed one of a few things. First of all, to dip into the cliche cupboard again, when are you most vulnerable traditionally in football? After you score, those 5 minutes after you score. Villa needed 10 to 15 minutes of control. Unai Emery wants them to control games, settle things down, keep possession, force the opponent to chase, make them worry as every minute goes by that they're behind in the game. They're at the wrong end of the table. They haven't had a whole lot of confidence. The other thing you need to control mentally is risk mitigation. Don't try anything foolish. Try to keep that 1-0 lead, and if you can build on it, great. And I know it's hard. You're playing at home. The fans are pumping. Your adrenaline's pumping. You've scored one. You're probably thinking, oh, we're going to go on to romp this thing. But this is when we need mental clarity, and I think we've got a little ways to go still there. Then we go up 2-1 in minute number 32, and I'm assuming the messaging from the dugout sounded something like, let's get to halftime in 13 minutes with the lead. That doesn't happen. At 2-2 in the dying embers of the first half, surely the thought process must be we get to halftime at 2-2. And that doesn't happen. And this comes down to mental maturity and managing games. And people forget that Boubacar Kamara just turned 23 in November. Just turned 23 3 months ago. And he's played 15 Premier League games. That's not enough. He needs to store more data away in his hard drive, and he will. And he will learn from this game. And Aston Villa needs to learn from this game. A team that wants to control games, that at certain moments, you must manage the match. And the number 1 big issue or moment that defined Villa 2, Leicester 4, Booba's blunders. I was fully convinced that I would never have to go through the hellish nightmare of watching an Aston Villa midfielder get caught dwelling on the ball from a goal kick at the edge of his own box after that Stevenage game when Leander Dendoncker got pinched. I thought for sure that was the last time we were ever going to see that, at least this year. And Boubacar Kamara says, hold my beer. I'm going to do the exact same thing in the exact same place and also at a terrible time of the game, as I alluded to in the game management comments. And how many times have we seen Boubacar Kamara wriggle out of sticky situations? All the time, including a couple of times in this game. But there is a fine line between confident and casual. It was pretty clear to me that Leicester was intent on doubling Kamara and at times Luiz in this game. And when that happens, then theoretically there should be somebody else free nearby. I mean, this is youth football stuff we're talking about here. It's the stuff I have to yell at my players every single week, that the ball is faster than any player and it never gets tired. If you move it quicker, it's harder to catch you. And Villa didn't move the ball quickly enough. And the problem is when you get pressed, you either get caught in possession or you're forced into a bad pass, generally in a zone of the field where there's not an awful lot of cover. Now, the Stevenage goal and the 1-1 goal here are so similar. It's from a goal kick. It's basically a set piece, and you need to have different options and routines and looks, and the players can't be static. They need to be fluid. I'll show you in a minute how static this whole thing was. You can't be static with a pressing team. This needs to be coordinated like a musical with the dancers. Everybody has to be moving at just the right time. Look, I know. We're going to play with the ball on the floor. We're going to play out of the back. We're going to play through a press. That's what Unai Emery wants. And there's a couple of ways of doing that. In fact, there's many different ways of doing that. But everybody in Claret in this moment is static. And sometimes you need movement. You need coordinated, timely movement. And what I want you to pay attention to is what the other two players are doing here, Tyrone Mings and Ezri Konsa, because they are release valves in the event that Kamara is put under pressure. Now, frankly, this first ball is so slow that it invites the pressure. But I want Ezri Konsa to either be starting on the byline or moving there so that Kamara can maybe play that, and then it's out to the right back. And maybe you actually even draw in this player and Kamara can play out this way. But they didn't do that. They all just stood there. And this is something they're going to have to work on way, way more and have different patterns and different approaches, because this was just too casual. This next one, I think, is worse because of what I alluded to earlier, the time in the game. I mean, we're in the dying embers of the first half here. To allow a goal at this stage is a psychological sucker punch. The manager has a team talk prepared for halftime at 2-2 and what to do next. And now you're in a position where you absolutely and positively must score the next goal. And this is so soft from Kamara, and the elite players will learn from this and never allow it to happen again. And, you know, credit to the Broj as well, as much as he's not my favorite man or manager. But he said, don't buy into the Kamara hype. He is the key pivot in Aston Villa play. It goes through him. They transition through him, put the pressure on him. And they did, and he cracked twice. This time. When you lose, you're going to take a hit in the categories we've been following, including at Villa Park, where the record now drops to 17 out of a possible 30 points. We're combining Watkins and Bailey goals now, 5 and 4 for 9 in total, versus the bottom 6. And Leicester were in the bottom 6 at the start of the day, 13 points out of a possible 21. Everything else stays the same. And now, up next, a straightforward and simple little visit to Manchester City and the Etihad, site of last year's soul-destroying collapse, 2-0 up to 3-2 down, the day that City won the title. Was that the day that broke Liverpool? Now, normally this visit would have me watching from behind my couch through my hands, but not so much this time. Aston Villa has absolutely nothing to lose here and a whole lot to gain respect-wise. So the whole feeling heading into this game is completely different. It's not coming from a place of angst, let's put it that way. And it's not lost on me either that Jack Grealish has suddenly found his form under Pep Guardiola. And I would like for that to not continue this Sunday. And then City play at Arsenal on Wednesday. I mean, to call that game big is a major understatement. This is potentially a title-altering match for City on Wednesday at the Emirates. Just a 3-day turnaround. That's not much. So Pep, you think, is going to have to rotate his squad, but that game means nothing if you can't take care of business at home against Aston Villa first. So you just wonder, will he rotate? How much? How many? And for Aston Villa, I only see a couple of places where they may rotate from the Leicester game. Moreno and Dean. I could see Jacob Ramsey making way for John McGinn. And you know what? If you wanted to throw a wrinkle at Pep Guardiola, because he'll know exactly how to deal with Leon Bailey, but he knows nothing about John Duran. In those short few minutes that Duran was on the park, you could see why Villa signed him. What have you chucked him on there? I mean, we don't know what the guy's all about. Go have a run, kid. There's no pressure on you. Go have some fun at the Etihad. Until that match, be well. And as always, up the mighty Villa.